Oh man, what the heck? Man, what is this? What is this? There was no all right, we're gonna keep going with this. Let me see here. Well, hello everyone. I just hit the live button and it did not do the intro or 30-second intro or anything like that. So I don't know what happened with that. That was weird. Anyway, hope everyone is well. Hey, all that kind of stuff. I hope everyone is well, doing your thing, making moves and all that kind of stuff. So I guess we're just going to jump into it. So let me say hello to a few people who have jumped in already. So if you're here, make sure you do say hello so that I can acknowledge you. And thank you so much for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Uh, that was really frustrating. I was expecting a 30-second jump in. All right. All right. So I am not going to belabor the time here. As I usually do, I have some warm-up videos to get into. So I wanted to talk today about what masculinity is, what that looks like, and what's kind of going on. So this has been a routine growing theme that we're constantly trying to figure out what's going on with men. How come they're not living up to par? Are they not living up to par? Are they being set aside, pushed aside? Are they being becoming second class citizens in comparison to the ladies? All this kind of stuff, right? So this is what I wanted to talk about today. And what I really wanted to get into is, some detractors, at least one detractor about what's going on here. So, if you have not seen the Anthony Mackie video, and this is all stemming from Anthony Mackie, a lot of this is going to be stemming from Anthony Mackie. The video that he did in talking, or at least he was on a podcast apparently with some athletes. I don't know who the athletes were, but they were talking about what masculinity is, and what it looks like, and how he's raising his sons and things along those lines. So I wanted to have a discussion about that. All right. So here we go. We're going to jump into it here. First, hey there, Jayla. Thank you so much for checking out the show. So we're going to jump into it here. I'm going to play the video that is kind of stirring up the hornet's nest here. So we'll get into it. Now, this is just for a reminder here. So this is my own personal video that I did, and I'm going to play a clip from this, and we're going to keep going here. Dig into it.
No, ma'am. They will always say thank you. They will always say yes. In the past 20 years, we've been living through the death of the American male. They have literally killed masculinity in our homes and our communities for one reason or another. But I raised my boys to be young men. And however you feel about that, you feel about that. Right. But my boys will always be respectful. They will always say, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. No, sir, no, ma'am. They will always say thank you. They will always open the door for a lady. They will always make sure that their mother is taken care and provided for. They will always be men. And that's always since they were 2 years old. Every time I left for a job, I tell my 15-year-old, you're the man of the house. You make sure these doors are locked every night. This alarm is on. You text me or you call me every night before you go to bed and you wake up.
I love that.
Because we're men. If I'm not there to protect, he got to be there to protect. Because you can have all the money in the world, motherfucker climb through the window, that money means nothing.
Right.
You can have all the celebrity in the world, motherfucker jump through the door, that celebrity means nothing.
Yeah.
So you got to have a little guard in there, And so for me, it's always that idea of American masculinity is very different. You feel it when you go to Europe. Like you see these, and you're like, could bust your ass, boy. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? You go to Europe,
tight ass pants.
Yeah, tight ass pants. Motherfucker, what's good, boy? You better lotion your ankle. Like you feel it when you go to Europe. Even when I was just in Kenya and I was walking around, I'm like, yeah. Dude was like, you ain't from here. Like, nah. Yeah, I could tell. I know you can. I could tell I ain't from here. You know what I mean? It's just that American male masculinity is something I think is very important for boys. Because now our little boys are afraid to fail, so they don't try. In the past 20 years,
Okay. Okay, so that is the video that I wanted to start off with or highlight. Kind of lay the groundwork again for this for what I want to present here tonight. And as we can see, there was a few things that Anthony Mackie said. Right, I didn't stop it to break it down or anything like that. But it's been broken down enough. You can go over to the video and thank you so much, Jayla. The podcast was The Pivot, hosted by former NFL players Ryan Clark, Fred Taylor, and Channing Crowder. I did not watch the full video. I just watched the clip. I gotta be, for full transparency, I just watched the clip. But I think there was enough in that particular clip, and it's caused a firestorm across social media and even across traditional media about what it means to be a man, what it means to be masculine, where we're going with this, and all that. And I think there was some pros and cons, and I laid that out in the video that I just had up on the screen here. That was just a piece of it. The pros are that yes, we should be men. We should be protectors and we should be providers. We should make sure that our family is good. We should make sure that our environment is good, and we should be watchful and we should be vigilant and we should be responsible. I completely wholeheartedly and full throatedly stand behind that type of philosophy. The downside of that is that a lot of times people, or as we can see, Anthony Mackie, there was a negative side to it when you can't turn off that type of hyper masculinity or that competitive masculinity. When he's in Europe and when he was in Kenya, he was saying, I could bust your donkey, right? He can bust you, right? He can take you down, right? And of course, there's always a sizing up that goes on amongst all humans. What level to degree, I'm not qualified to say. Whether that same thing is going on in another, to a degree in another country. That sizing up being, am I prettier than this person? If you're a woman, sometimes a man, right? Am I stronger than this person? Am I bigger than this person? Do I think that I can take this person? Can this person take me? Do I make more money? Do I have more clout, more social advancement opportunities, social status? All this type of thing is all comparative type of thing. But when you can't turn that off and you're coming from this hyper American philosophy that everything is about competition and everything is about putting other people in their place and everything's about this, that, and the other. And as I laid out in the video, right, all of this that we get, particularly as Black men, but as men, we get a lot of this from our cultural bringing of being Americanized, right? First, trying to overcome some of the things that have happened to us in our past, and then, of course, where we're at today. The civil rights movement and all the other things we've had to overcome. And so now Anthony Mackie is the product of this, probably a few years younger than myself, saying that after we've come through slavery, we've come through Jim Crow, we've come through the civil rights movement, we've come through mass incarceration. Now he wants to be a man and be a man among men. I have no issue or problem with that. In fact, I know, and I definitely agree that our masculinity has been hindered and been taken away from us. So we ought to fight hard for it, right? So thank you so much to Rhonda. Please, good evening and hit the chat. Good evening to you, Verity. Please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. The American male is exhausted. I definitely agree with that. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And that was part of we are exhausting ourselves, trying to keep up, trying to be competitive, right? Got to go to the gym, got to go to work, working, 8 hours is enough, 40 hours is enough, right? You got to go to other places, right? And if you look at the 40-hour work week, right? There were riots in France. That's a whole nother story, but there were riots in France because they didn't want to go to, I think like a 32 to 36-hour work week or something like that. It was years ago. I don't remember all of that. But they don't want to work like that. But here we claim to our claim to fame is rugged individualism. Our claim to fame is, get it out of the mud and all this type of stuff. Forget the fact that it was denied to Black people and African Americans, right? So this is all the stuff that we got to deal with. Hello to you, Deborah Hutchinson. Maybe the African male from the African continent doesn't have anything to prove. His environment isn't threatened in the same way as the U.S. While I doubt that, there is a clip, and listen, I'm no expert on this. This is all stuff I'm getting into, and I appreciate the comment. There was a clip one time about this. I want to say she was an ambassador. She was an ambassador for some country in Africa, Nigeria or somewhere. She was on Roland Martin. I'll try to find it and play it one day. And she was talking about this idea about Africans all getting together to, number one, control the continent, and number two, to coordinate with other Africans around the country, around the world, those in Brazil, those in Canada, those in Britain, those in the US and Caribbean, right? To understand that we're all being subjected to all this different violence, and violence, not just physical violence, but intimidation, subjugation, right? So she talked about the problems with colonization. If my memory serves me correctly, like all 50 out of the 54 countries, only 2 of them were never technically colonized during that time. Although I think that Ethiopia and Italy were going back and forth, but again, I'm no expert, so feel free to correct me about that. So what I'm saying is that they probably do have something to prove. They probably do. They probably don't have it to prove to each other. And so this is a whole psychological dynamic that we got to really kind of dig through. And I appreciate the comment, but we got to dig through what are we trying to prove? Right. And I'm going to play a video saying this, what is it exactly that we're trying to prove? And is this trying to prove something detrimental to our physical, psychological and emotional health? So we're going to kind of explore that tonight. So, and good evening to you, Tamika. Thanks for joining in from Houston, from H-Town, right? All right, so I got some stuff here I want to kind of go through. So let's take a look at what many men are going through. This is a guy, Robert Glover, and I got this from Auntie Anita's channel from Better Love Movement. So we'll add this, and we'll play what this brother is saying right here. So he's talking about what's going on with the American male and in modern society.
With men, because again, I've been working with men for 30 years, and a really core pattern I see is just this pattern of going it alone, isolating themselves. Mm-hmm. Another way I put it is so many men, and especially the younger men, millennials, generation below, they grew up with the internet. It's like that's all they need. They hang out. I call it, they hang out in the nursery. Nothing's required of them. Nothing's demanded of them. They get all their connections on social media, spend all their time on the internet, binging on Netflix, playing World of Warcraft, smoking dope, drinking, jerking off to porn. And that's their life. And to actually go connect with other real live human beings who could actually nurture them, fill their bucket, give them social connection, it feels like they'd have to give up too much. They have to give up all this other stuff over here that consumes them. And maybe even I think there's a fear that they might even have to reveal too much of themselves and reveal how shallow and empty and non-productive their lives really are. And so they just keep doing the same thing.
Yeah, when you're siloed off, no one is peering in to look at exactly how are you spending your day and exactly what do you think and when do you get out of bed. You've got this great quote where you say your mind would rather manage old and familiar anxieties than confront new and unknown ones. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about.
That's just a given. The devil you know is better than the devil you don't know. And for so many men, I liken it to, I call it an emotional tree fort. I don't know where you grew up if you had trees around you, but we had trees, we had tree forts. And the ideal perfect day is if, you or one of your buddies found somebody's dad's Playboy magazine or whatever, Hustler, Penthouse, whatever, and you go up in the tree fort, pull the ladder up, nobody can find you, and you can just be all by yourself and do whatever you want. And it's kind of like a lot of men just continue that mentality of just wanting to live in that emotional tree fort where they pull the ladder up. Nobody can track them. Nobody knows what they're up to. They don't have to get real, accountable, vulnerable with anybody. And then we wonder why, statistically, you read how many men are isolated, lonely, depressed, the tolls that it takes on us physically, emotionally, early death. Well, now it's men going their own way, incels, they're just saying, hey, we're advertising it now. We're in the club of guys that basically aren't in a club.
Yeah, they self-ID in their isolation.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes their identity. And then it also then becomes easier to blame something outside of you, whether it's women, society, culture, feminism, whatever. Well, let's blame them for my isolation. And I was at a retreat this weekend with about 40 men, and I spoke to them about this. And, if I had to pull a number out of my ass, I'd say, maybe 80% of the isolated, lonely men are isolated by choice.
All right, so that's important. That last statement right there. 40, in his estimation, 80% of the men who are isolating, who are choosing to go what he called the tree fort, want to just go up into into their caves, go up into their tree fort, continuing this childhood behavior, and they're doing it because of they're doing it voluntarily. They're not looking for whatever. And we got to figure out why that is. There's been a number of books written about it. I've talked about some other people, Richard Reeves and Scott Galloway, Tia San Johnson, and other people who are taking a look at this phenomenon. And there's been other ladies who are also, there's a book called Men on Strike. I think that was written about 10 years ago. I think her name is Helen Smith. She wrote a book about this. So this is a growing phenomenon. So when Anthony Mackie was talking about, for the last 20 years, the erosion of the American male, or the undoing of the masculine male and masculinity, this is a little bit of what he was talking about, right? It wasn't just pulling those numbers out. This has been going on for a while. So let's continue on with this.
Not because they've lost a partner, not because they've had an accident or an illness or a major financial setback. It's by choice. It's their preference. And then all the while wonder why they can't get love, can't get laid, can't get a promotion at work, don't have any friends. It's
I don't know if I would love to see or be a fly on the wall when he's having those types of discussions, because if they're choosing not to engage, then they're not wondering why they're not getting other things. They're refusing to engage because they don't, to my estimation, don't deem the effort to be worth it. There's no reward, or the reward isn't strong enough. This is the issue. That's the issue, that the reward isn't strong enough. They would rather sit in their homes, rather play video games all day, rather not have girlfriends, rather not approach people. I can't tell you how many times when I'm looking for a video or just scrolling through Instagram, there's numerous ladies that come across my feed who are saying that they're tired of men not approaching them. How come men don't approach them anymore? What happened to masculine men? I'm at some hardware store looking cute and nobody's approaching me. What's going on here? And then in the comment section of that, there's just a litany of men saying they don't deem the juice to be worth the squeeze. They don't want to deal with this. They don't want to look at that. They don't want to come out and right. If I approach you, I'm wrong. Or there's if I approach you at the wrong time, maybe you're with your kid, or maybe I approach you at the gym, or you give me the eye, or then somebody you're filming me and put me on blast. All this type of stuff has completely turned men off. And then there was a massive campaign or whatever you want to call it about choosing the bear over men. To have the bear come save you, have the bear come do it. This is the thing, that why men are choosing to go their own way, as he just said. And I don't like the term incel. I don't like that term. I don't think they're involuntarily celibate. I think that they're involuntarily in relationships. They can't find the type of relationships. Add all this together with the which a video I'm going to play is the acceleration of ladies and what they are looking for. And if you are seem to be an average guy, maybe they're not looking for you. And we'll talk about this, right? So we'll talk about this.
seems to be a voluntary place to be.
I understand why guys have a skepticism and a retreat from the world around them, though. It's not to say that they can't overcome it themselves and that the agency is in their hands to fix the problem. But I do think that a lot of guys feel like their challenges are being dismissed by the whining of a privileged class that they themselves don't actually feel like they're a part of. That, you know,
it is so ironic how all the projections out there of who's actually privileged in our culture. Mm-hmm. And, you have men saying, well, now women and minorities and immigrants are privileged, and the women and minorities and immigrants go, those white guys are privileged. and I've really never found where blame or pointing fingers resolves much of anything or gets you anywhere.
Yes. That being said, if you are a guy that is struggling and isolated and alone and doesn't have many connections, hearing that the world out there considers you to have some sort, like you're the original oppressor.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so this is another problem that I think that they are conflating is the guy who's alone. And now alone and lonely are two different things. So if they're choosing to be this way, I mean, are they looking for these other types of connections? And this is a conversation that other people are having, right? So if you're a guy and you're choosing just to maybe go to work, come home, play your video games, sit in your house, order your DoorDash or whatever, take out delivery, whatever, um, you're choosing not to do that. Excuse me, you're choosing to do that because you don't deem the other issues worth your attention and worth your time and worth your energy and effort in order to get. So I think that's a component that's missing. They're assigning loneliness to people, to men who are choosing to be this way, and that's not necessarily the case. They're assigning loneliness. Now, I think we have to take a closer look at what that means, what's their mental health and other things like that. But just to say that because you don't have a group of friends, or other articles that I've read where it says that that the guys don't have anyone close to them that says they know them really well. Are they looking for somebody like that? Or can they sit in their living room or in their bedroom playing video games and chatting with other, 30, 40 other people who they're playing video games with? I don't know. Right, so this is the issue.
I get it.
You are the OG
patriarchy.
Yeah, of course, you are the OG oppressor. That is going to encourage you to check out.
Talk about that dynamic with men, because again,
so that's an interesting statement. They're talking about the oppressor and who's oppressed and all this kind of stuff. So that goes back to the type of jobs, and I'm going to answer your question, and hopefully I can tie this into the answer your question there, Jayla. What do men want the reward to be? When you go to work, or when you go to college, or whenever you're doing whatever you're doing, you want a reward at the end of the day for that. The reward at the end of college is a good high paying job. A lot of guys don't get that, or they're not getting those types of jobs. The economy has changed so much that now men don't feel as if they, if you're not a book smart type of person, you don't feel a place for you. I think that since the Industrial Revolution, based on all the reading I've done, since the Industrial Revolution, they have struggled with what to do with men. This conversation about what to do with men is not a new one. It happened after the Civil War. It happened after the Spanish-American War. It happened after World War I. And it was always a crisis of masculinity. What are we going to do, right? So, when World War I and World War II kicked off, a lot of factory jobs and etc. The white males in particular went off to seas. Women were placed into the factory. Then black men or black women were placed in the factory to help do factories to help fill the roles. When the white men came back, you can't have these white men without jobs and be able to support their families. So they gave the jobs back to them. So there's always been a question about, what to do with these men, particularly after we have done so much with advancements within society and technology. This is why Richard Reeves, in the last video I did, talked about giving men scholarships for HEAL. That's health. I don't even know it's HEAL, right? Administration, education, health, administration, education, and literacy, right? Give them those types of scholarships so they can go to college, so they can enter into those types of field, versus the lumberjacks that they used to be, versus the dock workers they used to be, versus going to work in a mine, versus working on the oil rig. Because when all these jobs dry up, or all these factories move overseas, the guys don't have jobs. So to answer your question, what do they want the reward system to be? For the reward system, they want a decent job, and with the benefits of having a decent job is this idea that you could get a family, and that you be able to get a woman, get a house, start a family. Maybe get a house, get a woman, start a family. So, and there's a lot of pushback from feminists, and they would say that, oh, you as a man don't just deserve love, attention, and affection. That's the argument that they would say. You don't deserve a woman, right? But that's the reward system. So nobody's going to work without getting paid. And if a man grows up, he's going to want something in return. So if There's no market for him to get a good, viable, paying job. And this is a problem that even women are complaining about. A lot of mothers are complaining about my sons are not motivated. And a lot of women are saying, I can't find anybody on my economic level because I've got a master's degree, I've got a bachelor's degree, I've got this high-paying job. I want somebody on my level. Again, I'm going to play this, and I'm going to got some other videos that's going to demonstrate this. Is that this becomes the issue. This becomes the issue of what reward system do we give to men? Is it good enough? And here's the question that often people will say: is it good enough just to say you ought to do it for yourself? Clearly and obviously and evidently, from the last 20 years, from the numerous books that have been written about this, the decline of men on strike, other books written by women, that clearly that isn't enough. Let's see here. They assume if a man isn't making a woman a priority, that means he's lonely. That's not always. That's exactly what we're saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. I definitely agree with that, Black Dove. There's the assumption is that if you don't have this social network that we see as a social network, everything that this podcast was talking about men going outside, being around people, and all that. But maybe the social networks, because of technology, have just changed. So it's a different dynamic, and people don't know how to deal with that. And yes, if you're going to sit in the house playing video games, not engaging, I mean, you got to ask the guys, why is it that you're in the house? Why is it you'd rather sit in the house and not engage? Why don't you want to go to the club, to the bar, to the gym, to go for a walk in the park, to a dating site, to the speed dating sessions? You got to ask the guys, why would they rather not do that? Why are they so content to sit at home? I don't think they're asking these guys these types of questions. Good evening to you, Yoli. There's a lot of things to do in the world that don't revolve around women or friends. Exactly. The reward is simple. Don't make my life worse or be stressful. Be a net positive for the man. Getting a high-paid job is more than just having a qualification. What about social skills, being a team player, emotional maturity, etc.? Well, I think that all that is important, no doubt about that. But we're talking, okay. So I'm talking about the reward system of what men want. And yes, you got to have all those types of skills in order to get the job. But what does it take to get the job qualification wise, as far as how much education is it going to take, how long you got to go to school, how much student debt are you going to go into, right? And then of course, yes, you should have the social skills and be a team player and all that. And listen, I understand the social skills aspect of it. I think that a lot has been lost because of video games. Let me be very clear about that. When you sit in the house and you don't have to interact with people, and as a 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old, you don't have to interact with people. I grew up going to the boys club, and at the boys club we used to get in fights, right? But so you had to learn social skills, you had to learn how to navigate amongst people, you had to learn self-control, self-discipline in order not to get beat up or get jumped when you walked out, right? So all these different dynamics people have lost. You also conflict resolution, you had to learn all that. So a lot of these skills are definitely being lost. I definitely agree with that. Even now, this class I teach, right? There's a class that I teach where you have to do a team project. These kids, they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to work with each other. They're not consistent with their emails. They don't know how to call each other. They don't know how to talk to each other, right? All these are different types of skills that are being lost. So, things that we think that are evident or should be taught in childhood or should have learned in our childhood are not there, right? So that's why you got to put your kids on teams or let them go outside and play and all this kind of stuff, right? All right, so that I'm going to finish off with that. So let's get into the next couple of videos here. So I hope that I answered that about what men want as a reward system here.
Other people's lives. So the community, they are the 1%ers, but it doesn't people now. So now I learned a thing or two. Most women want a man of you guys' caliber. You guys, I'm gonna give you your kudos. You're successful men, you're attractive men, well-spoken men, black men, do well, you do for the community. They all want you. Now, it doesn't matter if she's rich or poor, fine or not that attractive, they all want you. Now, we know the truth of the matter is you guys represent, really when it comes down to it, not the larger portion of the masses. You guys literally might be 10%, might even be less than that. You might be like the 5%ers, the 1%ers, but it doesn't matter because 100% of the women all want you. So what happens is, what I've learned is, social media has given people insights to other people's lives. So every girl wants a man that makes bare minimum 100K, has to be attractive, faithful, prefers no kids. If she has kids, love her kids like they are your kids, treat her kids like you created her kids, show up for her when she needs you to show up for her, go to church for her every day, don't ever speak to another woman, always be available, but work so much that you can fulfill my lifestyle. It's crazy. I'm saving my next invention is the AI guy. I'm gonna make the 6'6" AI human-like man because it's literally the only man that represents this. And I think that what I've come to learn is women get really offended because they use settling. I hate the word settling because if you say, oh, you're saying I'm not good enough for a man that makes 100K, and their argument will be, well, I make that or more. So it only makes sense for me to require a man that makes what I want or more. Logically speaking, I get that. I don't have a disagreement there. But the part that they're missing, which matters the most, is that man doesn't date the same. A lot of times the wealthy man or the man that has the money, he doesn't want a broke girl, but he has enough. He goes into it knowing he's paying for everything, right? So even though you have a certain lifestyle, this man in his mind, I still got to pay for everything. So your money doesn't matter that much as you think it does. So I've talked to at least 15,000 single to another woman.
Okay, so I wanted to play that particular video. Make sure you guys hit the like button. The reason I want to play this particular video, even though we're talking about men, is because I want to highlight again. I'm going to go back a little bit here and highlight again what it is these ladies looking for. And if you're a guy, imagine being a guy who's not meeting these types of parameters. And I'm talking about just an average guy. And I'm not, this is what I'm talking about here. The average guy who is dealing with the loneliness or being a lone factor, who would choose not to engage in this type of thing because they're seeing, as Kendra G is now admitting, all the hearts that are going on there is me clicking on Kevin every time that Kevin Samuel's name was being clicked on there. So they're looking for this type of guy. If you're not that type of guy, they feel as if you're not that type of guy, they would feel as if they're being looked over. So they would rather play their video games with their bottles of lotion and ordering DoorDash, do their 8 hours and not do overtime, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I wanted to highlight. So I'm going to try to play this here. I don't know where she exactly said it at, but let's listen to all the qualifications that these ladies are looking for.
You should show up for her, go to church for her, prefers no kids to other people's lives. So every girl wants a man that makes bare minimum 100K, has to be attractive, faithful, prefers no kids. If she has kids, love her kids like they are your kids, treat her kids like you created her kids, show up for her when she needs you to show up for her, go to church for her every day, don't ever speak to another woman, always be available, but work so much that you can fulfill my lifestyle.
Even she had to laugh. How can you work so much that you can never fulfill, that you're going to fulfill my lifestyle, but yet be available? So even she had to laugh at this craziness. And this is her being kind. There's another video I played it before of hers talking about the same thing. Like, this is madness. And you guys want this, and you're refusing to date. You're refusing to date these type of men, right? So therefore, the men are going to this is why the men are retreating. This is why one of the reasons why men are retreating. Okay, something else I want to play here. Hold on. You're absolutely right there, Black Dev. 12% makes more, 12,000 or more, but they're passing over these guys, right? So that's the issue. All right, so this is going to be a video. Actually, you know what? I'm going to play something different here. All right, so what does a masculine man look like, right? What does a masculine man look like? We're still trying to figure that out. So I want to present here, share screen here. Okay. So I did this on this is I talked about Miss Christine Emba on another show. She doesn't work for the Washington Post anymore. I did reach out to her. I think she's on Instagram, so I did send her a message. So maybe I can get her to come on one day and talk about this. So, how should men be? Who's an ideal man? So, Kendra G just gave us what these a lot of ladies are looking for. So now the men are going to weigh in, right? Who's an ideal man? Our male readers have thoughts, right? So this is just from a year and a half ago, August 2023. So not that long ago, right? This is again behind the paywall. So I'm just going to kind of skim through it. So if you're having a subscription to the Washington Post, you can read through this, right? So these are all different types of men. We got Jesus, we got gosh, what's his name? Captain Stewart. I can't remember his name. Mr. Rogers, the actor there, George Clooney, and of course, former President Barack Obama. Right. So they go through this, right? Below are just a few of the many excellent responses we received. This selection is focused on replies from male readers, but don't worry, female readers, I read your takes too. They might be fodder for a future piece. So this is going to be what men deem to be what men should look like, right? So number one is going to be story and song, right? This is from literature, right? This is Tony Stark. This is uh, uh, um, Captain America, whatever his name, Steve Rogers, right? Uncle Ire from Avatar, The Last Airbender. I never watched that. I'm not familiar with that. This is for a guy from Tennessee here, right? The Man, the Flower, Cormac, the Road, right? This is where guys are taking their masculine presence from. It's a bunch of stuff I never heard of. King David, taking down Goliath. Even though he had his problems, he was a little bit toxic. So this is a guy from Albany, New York, who wrote that. Real men slay dragons. They also dance, express their emotions, cultivate friendships, and write poetry. I got no issues with any of that. I'd say Captains John Luke Picard, Jonathan Asher, Benjamin Sisko, Christopher Pike, and yes, James Tiberius Kirk. Those are for Star Trek fans who look for those types of strong male presence to be leaders, etc. Then we got dads. I'm skimming through this quickly. We got dads looking for father figures. Maybe if you had a father in your life, this guy's dad, born in 1930. He's called him the quintessential man. He served in the army, right? All this type of stuff, right? So this is what people are looking towards when they are looking for strong male presence and the type of role models for their lives. Teachers, in my idea of masculine, my high school English teacher. I was never interested in sports or cars or money and trucks, right? I'm still not, and finding it to be a waste of money. But in high school, my English teacher demonstrated that you can be mature and, dare I say, attracted to women and have intellectual interest, be creative, and travel to places that are interesting, right? So you don't got to be some guy who's always getting in the mud, right? So this is his idea of masculinity. But this guy's, at my age, are the younger persons and younger ladies in particular looking for that type of English teacher today and age, right? Remember what Kendra G said. Remember what she was talking about, right? This type of guy. Even though in the video clip that we just played, she wasn't talking about swag. She not once did she mention swag in that, but she has mentioned it other times. So all this type of education and all this type of income and going to church with me and being available and all that kind of stuff. She didn't mention swag, but she's mentioned in other videos, right? Public figures. Let's see. Mr. Rogers. I look at Fred as espousing more than covert masculine traits, including emotional awareness. Men might not talk about it, but we definitely feel emotions, contemplation, gentleness, eye level contact, sensitivity, compassion, and love. Right. So that was Mr. Rogers. LeBron James, Barack Obama, some people are looking up to. I don't know who Hassan Mount is. But people have all their different ideas about this, right? So you can go through that. George Clooney is on here, so you guys can go through that. But this is what people are looking to when they're talking about masculinity and what that means to them and how people show up in the world. So let's see. All right. Let's see. Getting a high paid job. I read that on one. They always start with the 100K thing, 20%. Professor X is his name. Okay. Which Professor X? from comic books, or from which Professor X, or from Public Enemy? I generally don't know. Hey to you, Deirdre. Hello. All right. So let's see. All right. So let's see. I got another video to play here. So we're going to get into someone who disagrees with Anthony Mackie's assessment about what male and masculinity is. Let's hear what this brother has to say.
This is for you. We really want to care for you.
American male in the last Anthony Mackie says we are living in the death of the American male in the last 20 years. He says, quote unquote, they have literally killed masculinity in our homes on his press run for Captain America. He goes on to talk about how he's teaching his sons to be men, even if the rest of the country isn't doing it. And I ask this question, men, guys, at what point, how much can we possibly obsess over this idea of manhood and living up to being men and this rubric and criteria that it takes to be a man and defining it and redefining it and obsessing and focusing and checking ours versus checking others and seeing who's more manly? At what point do we take a breath and just say, dang, if we have to put this much juice into being this thing, how can we then also say that we are that thing? My German Shepherd never thinks about being a German Shepherd. She never does a German Shepherd performance. She never checks her German Shepherdliness against that of others. We are living in the shadow of a definition of what it is to be a man that was passed down to us by other men and that we are now passing down to our sons. And for the record, it's not just men who make us live up to that thing, but we have a choice. We don't have to live under that specter forever. The inadequacy that so many men feel right now is not because, quote unquote, they have killed masculinity. It's because there's a man-made definition of manliness that is a shadow over our heads that none of us can live up to, and it makes us feel like failures every day. We need to shed that thing. It's a disease. It's a virus. We live in a mandemic. Anthony.
All right. So I could not. I can appreciate his take on this. The problem that I have is that he's kind of dumping on a past era. I don't like when people of any type of thing, of any generation, dump on people or their forebears. The reason he can sit in his chair in his house, in his air-conditioned house, and make these videos is because a masculine man that he doesn't feel that this is his words, that he doesn't feel he can live up to, has gone out there and laid the wood, laid the pipes, laid the foundations, gone onto the oceans, laying the cables across the water, and put up satellites into the atmosphere, all this type of stuff, right? And so you want to dump on Anthony Mackie because he's trying, and all Anthony Mackie said was that he's telling his children he's telling his boys to be men, to be protectors, and to be providers, to call him, to make sure the house is locked up. That is what he's asking for. Is that too much to ask? To be a decisive person, to be a decisive individual? That is what I took issue with. And he made the comparison about a German Shepherd thinking about this, right? This is what I'm saying about this younger generation. This is what this is what the younger generation doesn't, in the older generation, Gen Xers and boomers, have an issue with, is that these guys dump on the past, don't understand, what it took for them to get to the place that they are. And this is that old adage that hard times make hard men. Hard times, or hard men, make soft times. Soft times make soft men, and then soft men eventually are going to make the hard times hard again. So you got to understand that, and we're going to live through this cycle with these guys who can get up here. And this is just one guy. It's certainly not all men are talking like this. I definitely understand that. There was many people who are appreciating the message that he was giving, but this particular message, it rings how it rings to you, but to me, it rings as a one who doesn't understand what it took to be this way. And there was a time when it was rugged and tough, and we lived out in the wilderness, in the woods. And yes, we don't live that way anymore, and I don't want to live that way anymore either. But that doesn't mean that that we ought to tamp down any type of masculinity. And as I've already demonstrated from the opinion piece, that looks different to different people. That can look different to different people. So don't say that we can't live up to it. And some people are going to be more rough and tough, and some people are going to be soft and gentle. But in all of this, you can still make sure that your children lock the door at night. And all of this, you can still make sure that your children protect their mother. Say no, sir. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Can be respectful towards their teachers. Can be respectful towards their law. Can call any stranger that they meet sir or ma'am. Hold the door open for people. I don't think that any of that has to be lost. But we are also at the same time engaging with people who don't want to engage anymore and are withdrawing for a number of reasons. And there's a dumping on those people who want to withdraw, and we're not asking them why they want to withdraw. So that's the biggest issue that I'm having. But I bet she looks very German. Let's see. So the dude in the wheelchair was that was let's see, let me move this here. The dude in the wheelchair was this is you might know him as Professor X, but that was Captain Picard from Star Trek on the extreme left there. That's who that is. So what does it mean to you? What does masculinity mean to me? If you're asking me, I think the masculinity means exactly what Anthony Mackie was saying. I think a man ought to be strong. I think you ought to be decisive. And strong, of course, is going to be subjective to different people. What does it mean to be strong? I think you ought to speak your mind, be able to have a disagreement with people. I think you ought to be able to disagree without being disagreeable. I think you ought to be able to hold your own in case things occur. Be ready for violence, but try to do the best you can to avoid it. I think that you ought to be, one who is looked up to in your home, a decision maker, decisive, to have the ability to take control, to take leadership without being controlling, to be a good listener, to be empathetic, to help help those who are in need of assistance, to defend the poor. Right. So when we talked about that article there, right, I always, I didn't have a father, so I looked up to a lot of different people in my church, and I talked about all that. But I also looked up to a lot of different people in the movies and stuff, right? So I can identify with those people that talk about story and song. I can definitely identify with those types of people, or that type of thinking, I should say, because those types of think about Captain America. I think that was I think that he embodied what every man ought to be, right? Capable of violence, took care of his body, but yet, when it came down, if you watched the whole Marvel series, you understood that when it came down to doing the right thing, he was willing to walk away from his friends because he believed in his internal values. And that, to me, I remember back when the movie was going on, are you team Captain America, are you team Iron Man, when Marvel's Civil War came out, one of the best movies in the Marvel, because it really demonstrated, how we can be and how we can move in this world as men, right? Have the ability, but still have that empathy about you, right? So let's see. Mhm. All right, so those are the videos that I want to show. And there's another video here that I was sent to, and this is about men who are avoiding confrontation. Men avoiding confrontation because they're afraid of the consequences and afraid of getting into it with their women. So thus far, let's just kind of do a recap. What I've talked about so far is, definition of manhood, masculinity, what it means to me, man. It's going to mean different things to different people. I have no issue with that. As long, to me, there's a baseline about being strong, standing on your square, having empathy, being intelligent, all that kind of stuff. We've also stressed that the women are looking for these types of qualities too. The women are looking for these types of qualities in men, right? And if the men don't get those types of qualities, don't develop those types of qualities, or don't see an opportunity, or don't see a reward system to attaining those types of qualities, then they're going to withdraw and they're going to resign. And this is a problem that men are having within marriages, and I'm going to try to show this too, is that they're withdrawing a lot of times from marriage because of the situations of feeling emasculated within their presence. They don't know how to have a disagreement, et cetera, right? So here we're going to play this video here. This is from this is a guy, what's his name? Robert Moore. He's passed away a couple of years ago. Robert Moore. Here we go.
And I'll just cop to this for myself. There are a lot of guys that just cut off any of their royal and warrior stuff and just don't show it. They take refuge in the magician sort of lover sector of the psyche. I'm not saying this is you. But I'm just saying that instead of ever developing the ability to be in a confrontation with another person, not just women, but to be in that confrontation without being homicidal, and being in that confrontation without really making oneself suicidal by not protecting oneself.
He's talking about retreating. Sped it up a little bit. He's talking about retreating and not engaging in, because they are afraid that they're going to become homicidal or suicidal because they don't have any self-control of themselves, so they're choosing to retreat.
A lot of guys who cut the whole active aspects of the male self off in order to survive. And what they will do is what I did for many years is I would just sort of be like the Wizard of Oz, and I would just disappear into that magician. Nothing can enrage a woman more than she's trying to confront the man, trying to engage him, and he sort of suddenly she notices, this thing sitting here with me is not really him. This is an android. That guy put an android in here to deal with me. I'm not kidding you. And often they could not articulate that I just said, but they think this is not a real person. And so then they'll start to escalate their attacks to see if this thing can sustain some punishment or whether they will crack and the real guy will step out. So a lot of us become opaque and we are not visible. When I did the Mankind Project weekend and I was asked to choose an animal name, I chose President Lion, because in so much of my life I have been opaque and not present, not accessible behind my magician capacities. Oh, you have a problem? I don't understand. So I'm not saying that's you, but I'm saying it is possible to be so conflict averse that you don't put anything out there of your true self that might lead somebody to want to bump up against you. Yeah. And we call that in psychoanalysis, when we handle things that way, we call it the false self system. Men would rather fight a whole division of enemy tanks than to deal with an enraged woman that they're in an intimate relationship with. In fact, that's why they're so eager to go off to war a lot of the time. because one of the great, realities about men of our day is how terrified they are of women when the women have some power and some strength and hurl the lance of the woman's truth, her truth, at us. And I've mentioned a couple of times John Lee's work. He's constantly pointing out the way in which we men, when the woman in our life, whoever the most special woman in our life is, begins to criticize, John points out that we almost always start declining in age. And fairly quickly, we're 3 years old. We're just shrinking and terrified. And this is the point, where domestic violence from the male side starts, is when the man loses connection with his grown-up personality. And in the face of the criticism coming from a woman that's got some firepower, which is all of them, when it's coming at him, he is immobilized very often until the point where the rage kicks in, and then he will become often physically violent. So that physical violence comes out of a man who's collapsing into his weakness and self-doubt.
So you got to maintain your strength. You got to maintain that. And if if you're being challenged, no matter where you are, you got to be able to hold your square. And it's going I heard something one time that really kind of changed my life. It was appeasement only makes the aggressor more aggressive. Appeasement only makes the aggressor more aggressive. So you're being challenged, no matter whether you're a coworker, somebody, a teenager, you got to be able to stand on your square. You got to be, as a man, you got to be able to stand on your square. And think about what he said before. A guy would rather face a whole military, a whole tank division rather than, have an argument or be in stressful situation with his wife. Even the Bible talked about this, rather being where men would rather be dwell on the rooftop than be in a home with a contentious woman. So I'm talking about men standing on their square. So we'll finish this off here.
So I'll spend a good deal of time with men trying to help them learn that if you're going to maintain a relationship with a woman, and this would be true for gay lovers as well, when your partner starts to come at you, as they inevitably will, with disappointment and displeasure, I try to tell men, you need to have your heart protected here. I'll say, you need to do a little active imagination, visualizing a little Kevlar suit. You know what Kevlar is? It's bulletproof, that you button up in. Because if you leave your heart uncovered when the lances are being thrown with great force and accuracy to get your attention, then you will regress and you will not be able to function cognitively. In other words, you will not be able to listen. Now, we would like to think that all of the lances that are thrown our way are, as Parsifal kind of feels, this is, what you say, unjust treatment. What is the word?
Unjust.
Yes. And of course, when the salvos start to come, there is a lot of wrong stuff in it. But that's not the most important part of what's in it. If a man is actually going to do his shadow work, then he needs to practice on being able to prevent himself from dying in the face of this onslaught, having his heart completely broken, so he has to end the relationship. I always say to a man, protect your heart or you will end the relationship. You don't protect your heart, you will end the relationship. It may take you a while, depending on how masochistic you are, but you will end the relationship.
So what this brother is saying right here is that obviously you just got to be able to protect your heart, don't take things personally, and know how to have an argument, know how to have a disagreement, because the people who are closest to you are the ones who can hurt you. The people who are closest to you are the ones who can and will hurt you. This is about having secrets, being open, being vulnerable, all that kind of stuff. So you got to be able to protect that. So I'll drop the link in a minute here, brother. Arguing is a skill, knowing how to ask the right questions to find out what the issue is. That's why a man shouldn't open up and tell their secrets. Yeah, listen, I definitely agree with that. Big fact, you have to stand. You don't have to crash out, but you have to stand your ground. Yeah, absolutely. I will drop the link in a second here. But I wanted to show one more thing here, and this is about what happens. This is why men retreat, and when their masculinity is being challenged. And this brother right here, he talks about shadow work, and he deals with the guy on the screen here deals with Jungian, or dealt with. He's passed now. Jungian psychology, Carl Jung, however people want to say it, Jungian psychology. That talks about getting to the real you, your animus and shadow work, and different traumas from the past are repressed and all that kind of stuff. So that's what he deals with a lot. And he wrote a book. I'll put it up on the screen here. Let's see if anybody's interested. I don't know. That type of stuff isn't really up my alley, but he wrote a book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, Rediscovering Masculinity Through the Lens of Archetypical Psychology, a Journey to the Male Psyche and its 4 essential aspects. He talks about being a warrior, a king, the warrior, magician. That's what he's talking about, retreating into the magician as the Wizard of Oz, and the lover. So, I mean, if you're into that type of thing, you can read that. That's not really my forte, but yeah, that's what he did. All right, so I want to show something from the Happy Wife School. She does a lot of work. This particular lady that I'm going to feature here, she does a lot of work with men being emasculated within their relationships. So I typed in the Happy Wife School, and let's see, why do women emasculate men? Let's play this one.
To remind you that 60% of...
I'll drop the link after this.
As a reflection of how we feel about ourselves. So it stems back to the unhealthy relationship we have with ourselves as women, which stems from our inability to understand and be in control of our emotional state. Our unhealthy relationship also stems from the choices and decisions we make in our lives out of integrity and character of who we are that cause us to feel bad about ourselves. And because we are pain avoiders and do not want to confront ourselves and the choices and decisions we make that deteriorate our sense of self-worth, our sense of self, our sense of feeling good about who we are, We project that onto our husbands. So all the things as women that we despise and hate about ourselves, we then project onto our husbands and we tear them down as a reflection of how badly we feel about ourselves. And this is a good time in this question. And thank you for the question. It's a good time to reiterate my camp that I do not subscribe to camp victim, which is modern day therapy and psychology, that it is our childhood, our daddy issues, our relationship with our mom, our past traumas that cause us as women to be so unhappy in ourselves. There is no way out of that. We will be a victim forever. I subscribe to camp take responsibility, that as an adult, how we feel about ourselves and the very life we have is a reflection of our choices and decisions, not our past, not our upbringing, not our relationship with our parents, not our daddy issues, that we are responsible. And it's the choices and decisions or lack of choices and decisions we make as women that deteriorate, again, our sense of self-worth and how we feel about ourselves. When we live out of integrity, we take shortcuts in life, we are unkind to our husband and others in our life, we put on a facade, we're faking it, it causes us to feel really bad about ourselves. And again, we don't want to face that. So we take how we feel about ourselves out on our husbands so that we don't have to be accountable and be exposed to it. And the challenge is that when we live as victims, blaming other people and our husbands for how we feel, we have no self-awareness. There is no self-awareness in being a victim because our sole focus and lens is on what our husbands are doing to cause us to feel this way. And we have no capacity to look at ourselves and how we are creating the experience we are having. So that's why we have to move into camp take responsibility of what is it about me? What are the choices and decisions I have made to have caused me to feel this way? Because then we can have a solution. But it stems from our own the emasculation stems from our own self-hatred, our own self-esteem and lack of confidence that we don't want to face and don't have a constructive way to face that then causes us to emasculate. Hello again. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch.
Okay, that's just a clip. You guys can go over to her channel there and check out her she's got a number of videos about why the ladies engage in the behaviors that they do in emasculating their husbands. And the question it has to be, why are the men standing up for it? So that a lot of them are avoiding this type of behavior and choosing not to engage and all that kind of stuff. So it was just a clip, so it may have been a little bit difficult to understand, but she's saying that the reason that they throw the barbs, the reason that they attack men, the reason that they will challenge their masculinity, the reason that they will deny him sex, deny him food, and the reason that she will embarrass him in public is because they have internal traumas in work that they need to overcome. It's not your daddy's fault, your parents' fault. It's not your childhood trauma. It's not the way it's whatever. It's the decisions that you're making these days. That's her assessment of it. That's her assessment. I do think that there's some issues. I think that there are definitely issues in your past that you need to deal with. And if you're going to engage in a relationship, then you are going to have to be strong enough as a man in order to deal with that. Chaos, I see you. Give me a second here. Let's see. Chaos, I will bring you up. Hold on a second there, Chaos. Actually, let's see. Before you start speaking, I want to bring this up here just to show this one last thing here. So this is I talked about this before, and this is from the American Psychological Association. And I talked about this before. APA guidelines for psychological practice with boys and men, 2018. 7 years ago almost. Still talking about how we deal with the man crisis and what's going on with boys and men and all this type of stuff, right? And so I want to, again, with the video that I played about the guy with the bandana on his head critiquing Anthony Mackie, right? This is almost what he's talking about here, right? This gender role strain, right? Gender role strain is a psychological situation in which gender role demands have negative consequences on the individual or others. The negative effects of gender role strain are mental and physical health problems and all this type of relationship, right? So in other words, you feel like you should live up to a certain thing, certain level, role, masculinity, and you're not living up to it, particularly as boys, and then you feel a certain type of way about that, right? Then there's masculine. These are definitions you can see here. These are definitions that they're giving for this. And this is a paper that was put out by the American Psychological Association telling or instructing or suggesting to other psychologists how they should deal with men who are going through issues, who want to retreat, who want to play video games all day, who don't want to engage, who don't want to have girlfriends, and all that kind of stuff, right? So another definition is masculine ideology is a set of descriptive, prescriptive, and proscriptive of cognitions, that's thought processes about how boys and men should behave. Although there is a differences in masculine masculinity ideologies that are a particular constellation of standards that have always held a sway over a large segment of the population, right? Even though we talked about this a little bit, even though there's always these different ideas, you can go from Mr. Rogers to LeBron James. There's still something that they would say is somewhere in there that's anti-femininity, achievement. Men ought to achieve something, a stool of appearance of weakness, right? Don't ever appear to be weak. Be adventurous, risk, and violence. Then there's general conflict, right? In other words, this one is you want to be a certain, maybe you well, let's just read it. As is defined a problem resulting from adherence to rigid, sexist, and restrictive gender roles learned during socialization, in violation of yourself, and all that kind of stuff. So you don't feel like as if you can be true to yourself. Oppression, privilege, psychological, gender sensitive, and all that. So this is on the internet, so anybody can download this. So you can go over, you can type this in, American Psychological Guidelines. You can read through that if you want, but there's like 10 different parameters that they suggest. All right, so that's that. So we'll get to it. Chaos, you're up. What's up? What do you got to say, brother?
Okay. Damn. Trying to get my thoughts together. I came in a certain point in the stream, but I'll probably not go too much because I had to go back and absorb what was said here. Anthony Mackie had a point about the state of males or men in the society. And I find ironic that he's not just the only man that's talking about this. There are other non-Black men that have been talking about this for some time now. But why is it sudden this man got a whole lot of attention? I wonder if it's because of the movie that was just released a month ago that a lot of people like or don't like, that now he's up there making his ways throughout the internet and addressing the struggles and the problems that men like him or any men are, dealing with, and it's bringing it to light. And I think a lot of people are just pushing back. I wonder if that's one of the reasons why, most people really having this conversation again about what really is a real man. Even to the woman that was a artist, she said that straight Black men are a problem. You remember that one?
Yeah, I don't have that clip, but I did hear that straight Black. She don't want to. Isn't a singer, a rapper, or something?
She's supposed to be a artist that they're trying to push after Kendrick, because right now there's no one in the music business that push. They could say we're gonna put somebody in front to get some attention. So I guess I'm not sure what music she does because I don't listen to her music, but they're trying to use her as that cannon. So to be the cannon fire, you have to start controversy. And what's the best thing to do? You attack men. Anyway,
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and thank you so much for that comment. So I definitely agree. The link is there for anyone else who wants to come up here. I definitely agree that Mackie stirred the pot there, because a lot of this talk, everything that he said, is essentially in a quote unquote manosphere, or it's in the incel movement, or men going their own way. And he's saying out loud, and as a actor, yes, on his tour, saying that we need to bring masculinity back. So that caused a stir. And so if somebody else is saying, oh, we could, it's okay to, I don't know, wear pink or whatever, then that would be glorified too. But for this guy to be saying that's why he got a lot of pushback. And I think the pushback, to Jayla's point, there has been a lot of pushback, or I don't know about a lot, but I think it's been shocking. And I've seen a few videos, like the one that I played here tonight, talking about his comments, because and the I think the idea is that he really didn't say anything that was really controversial. I think people were looking for that. And one of the biggest things that they were saying that I saw was ladies saying, in particular, ladies saying, you're putting too much pressure on your boys. What if something happened to them? They're 15 years old. That's a lot of responsibility. Don't you realize, and this is what I'm saying, they don't realize the boys at 15 used to go to war. Right? I mean, is it too much responsibility to send text messages and call your dad to make sure that tell him the house is locked up? I mean, what this refusal to allow boys to grow up into men. But the boy at 15 years old who doesn't learn to lock his doors and be protective Why would you expect him to be able to do that at 30 or 40? You got to train, it's not going to turn on overnight. So he or she has to be trained young to be the type of person, to be the type of mate, be the type of man that you're looking for later in life. So the boy has to be taught young, just like the ladies have to be taught young to be the type of wife. And for some reason, we think that there's an interchangeableness and that there's a blank slate and that these things don't really matter. And then next thing you know, when you're 25 and 30 years old and looking for something substantial, either you can't present them because the boy hasn't been trained, he hasn't been trained, he doesn't know to protect his woman, doesn't know how to walk inside, doesn't know how to change the car tire, doesn't know how to check on his woman, doesn't know how to come home, doesn't know how to do any of those types of essential functions that we would expect of a man. So why would you expect him to be able to do that at 30 if you didn't treat him, give them responsibilities at 10 years old? I've met ladies also who have talked about the same type of thing. They say that when they're out with their sons, that they make their sons pay the bill. If they're out, whatever, they make their son pay the bill. Make the son do a little bit of talking to the manager, just to get them used to that, because they know that this is the type of man that they need to be. Go ahead, Chaos.
Okay. Yeah, I'm switching. I agree with you, Dr. L. One thing to keep in mind that the women complain about the men of today is you grooming them and you raise them the way that you want them to see fit. And you see how it really is the turnout of this for a period of decades. You get me? Hell, I saw one person, well, actually, I've seen some videos really. And I never cover much on the pop the balloon, because when you look at the crowd of people that's looking for mates, allegedly, right? You look at from head to toe to a lot of these people's, you could tell right off the bat, some of them are not really serious in looking for mates. And even if they are, you see how people are selecting people the way they are, either what they look, their appearance, how they're carrying themselves, their demeanor, And people got to forget the men that are on there, majority of them are raised by mothers. You get me? Some not developed the sassiness, but some, developed some form of tendencies. At the end of the day, when we talk about manhood and what it really define what a real man is, only men could define what manhood is. I don't like it when women step in and say they want to define what manhood is. No, you don't have the authority to do that. You get me? Because every man moves differently. And if you're trying to define it, that means you at the end looking for some form of control for your comfort. And notice that in a world where world is still run by men, last time I checked, men are always in constant state of flight, always trying to impose environment. It's never an easy task, because a man is always out here trying to be something, to either prove himself or to make something of the world, to be for respectfulness. I'm getting tongue tied, but I hope y'all can follow me a little bit. So then I don't like when when people are getting pushed back about this definition of manhood, because right now I would say they're trying to really condition the whole population, especially in the West, of backwardness, and they want to label it as manhood, and that's not going to work.
What are your thoughts about? And I often hear this about redefining. Only men can define masculinity. I don't know if I 100% agree with that. And the reason that I don't agree with that is because women have to choose those men, and that's why I played Kendra Dree. I know you probably came in late, but women are defining that. So if all women said, "I want a skinny, 5'2" man, that is the picture of masculinity," then that's what they would select for. That's what they would date. That's what they would go after. And so men would, shrink down or whatever, and those would be the type of men that people would go after. Men can define or have a sentence definition to it, but the women have to agree with that definition, because they're selecting for those types of men. And this is why the quote unquote incel, or men going their own way type of thing, because these type of men don't feel as if they are the select ones for whatever reason, or they feel as if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, and I'm just gonna go into my own corner. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thoughts is this, that, and always I pose a question when people lay this out, and I always think critically: can women be satisfied? Should be the biggest question. Can they be satisfied? If not, then really, when I take the opinions, I'll take it on face value. But overall, when I look at overall, say at the end of the day, you're not really meant to be satisfied. You're constantly changing like the weather. So you might have your opinions or your standards, which is fine if you can get them. But overall, when we talk about define, still it's gonna be amongst men in a society that's still run by men, unfortunately. Now, if it was run by men and women, we would have a different conversation. But as I look at as a state as is, most people that's still pushing the buttons still men, unfortunately. So, but that's just me. That's just me. I mean, a lot of people, and really, that's a good question that you have a different opinion, and that's good. But when I look at overall as the environment as a whole, I have other, And do men even know how to be men without being abusive thoughts? Okay, you have to define abuse personally.
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question there. You have to define abuse, because I think a lot of times, I think that ladies want men to be men, but then when they become stern or become forceful, then it becomes a problem. So what are you classifying as abuse? I would classify as abuse as physical abuse. Obviously, don't put your hands on a woman. No, and also I would say don't call her out of her name. Um, put your hands on her, calling out of her name. Because if you're the breadwinner, don't become financially abusive, refusing to buy her feminine sanitary products, or getting her nails done or hair done and all this other type of stuff. I had a conversation today with a young lady about that, talking about if you become the breadwinner, and if I'm depending on you, don't lord that over me, right? Because otherwise it's going to make me want to go out there and get my own money and all this. So, what are you defining the abuse? And they seem to be either too weak or too controlling. So we're trying. I mean, we're definitely trying to
It
find a
goes back
sweet
again.
spot. Go ahead.
Defining what is too weak and what's too controlling. See, one thing as men, we're up here, we have to be logical when we're trying to say something, and we have to define what is. So we get down to root cause. You're talking about abuse. Okay, define it. What is the abuse to you? What is weakness to you? What is too controlling you? Once we get down in the deeper things, now it's going to reveal for actual clarity, and in clarity there will be some of an actual answer.
While we wait for see if Chris C, what would you think is too abusive? If your boys having a conversation to you, what would he say to you and you would say to me, you know what, you really shouldn't have did that. You really you really shouldn't have. What would you say? Oh, he dropped off. He's dropped off there. So if he wants to come back, he can. So I'm saying sometimes that can be a subjective thing often too. Oh, here he is back. You with us now, brother?
Yeah, I'm just checking my internet connection. For some reason, the check is now distorting. I don't know why it's doing that now. Come look at YouTube. Is all right. Say something, Dr. L.
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
Yeah,
loud
I'm
and clear.
hearing you. All right. Yeah, because I was playing for the playback, it's not doing it. But when I'm on the streamer, it's starting to distort. I don't know why it's doing that crap.
So I asked you a question about what would you say? What if you're with your boys? You guys are out having a beer or whatever, and one of them says something. What to you would be an example of, man, this brother went too far, and I got to check him about that? What would you call abuse?
If we're like in a, like I said, bar drinking, appropriate to a woman, that's what you're saying.
You broke up. You started borging there for a
all right. Now you sound better. All right, I think you can hear me better now.
I can hear you. Yeah.
All right, repeat the question because it looked like the distortion stopped.
Okay, so I'm asking you, if you're out with your boys and you have and one of them is telling you about an interaction they had with their girl, and what would be something that you would draw the line at? He's telling you about an argument they had. What would be something that you said, man, you crossed the line at, trying to define abuse?
Damn, that's a good question. Well, I'm not really drinking, but let me think on that question very
All right,
quick.
let's think about it. Women can define weak men, but men in general, I don't think so, which is why men are avoiding relationships in marriage in the first place. Black Dev, are you saying that men um, are you saying it's too subjective? Like, and then this would go to Jailer's. I guess I'm trying to incorporate this into Jailer's question here. Stern is a no-no. Why is Stern a no-no? Be resourceful, show initiative, but dependable. Why is Stern a no-no? Right? If I say, let's just say, you and I are at we're at a concert, and I see things getting a little crazy, right? And I say, okay, get your stuff, we're gonna go, right before a fight breaks out or whatever. I'm saying it with that exact tone. Listen, get your stuff. I don't like the vibe in here. Things about to get crazy. Get your stuff and let's go. Would you feel as if it's okay to resist what I'm saying? That's a question for her. For anyone else, any other lady in the chat can chime in on. Is that too stern? And what do you mean by stern? Women can define weak men, but in general, I don't think so. Which is why when I hear these ladies talk about weak men, I'm hearing they can't make decisions. I'm hearing they don't want to stand up for themselves. They don't have a conversation with the manager. Men are pushing back on what women seem to be asking for a man to be. It wasn't a response to anyone in the chat, though. I got you. Rhonda says, I'm grabbing my stuff and we're leaving. Gail says it's time to go. right. So that would be is that too stern? Is it the way he's saying it, or is it if he's pointing in your face? I mean, what would be too stern?
You know, now that I think about it, and I'm not sure any ladies in the chat room will keep it honest. Have any ladies had like your father involved most of your lives? Like in general, like is either the mother's married or just still involved, regardless. Is you still involved in nature with your father? Be the question I ask ladies in the chat room.
All right, say that question again. I missed it
No,
myself.
I'd say for the ladies in the chat room, is your father around or involved in your life, like in the development of your life, right? He's married to your mother or not? Is he still present?
Well, okay, I get that question. I understand that question.
Yeah.
But as I tried to, that's why I played a little bit of the happy wife school there. A lot of times, we got to start making better decisions. Okay, we've had trauma. Our mother wasn't there, our father wasn't there. We've gone through abuses. When is it okay to start making better decisions? When is it okay to start making better decisions? Is it a time and place where we have to wake up?
Well, my thing was this, Dr. L, and to answer the question earlier, in regards if one of my friends I'm drinking, and he's telling me he's having a certain situation with his girlfriend or wife, and let's say it gets to the point where physicality has come to play. I tell him personally, and this is just a suggestion. Anytime
Hold on. I didn't say physicality. I said anything that he's saying. I'm saying
okay.
anything. I'm saying anything. If there is, you're having a conversation with your boys, you guys are all sitting around just talking. There's a disagreement. What is the point of which you would say, "Nah, brother, you went too far"? Is it anything that they've said, or yes, physical? I just want to be clear about.
I was saying, damn. And that's why it's something to really think about. Because we say a lot of things, and usually if he's in a relationship and he says something that might be out of line, I would say if he's like, how can I say, if your woman was touched and you were making fun of it, then I have to say something about that. In general, like if something happened to her in her childhood was like trauma, where something was like something they did with sexually, and he went too far, then yeah, I will have to draw the line. Matter of fact, I wouldn't talk to that dude if he'll be make fun of that, because that's not no joking thing.
I got you.
Yeah.
So Sassy Red Cutie says, if I trust you, then I trust your judgment. So I wouldn't consider that stern. I would see it as a concern for my well-being based on your statement and the environment. Okay, so this is the question that I have. Thank you for that comment. What builds the trust? How do you get to that certain level of trust? Do you go out with men that you don't trust? I often hear this: if I trust you, if I feel this way. My question is to the ladies, if anyone can chime in on this: why are you going out with people, having intimate relations with people that you don't trust and don't feel that whatever that type of connection is? What would make a person do that? And I guess I'm linking it to the point of, if I trust you. I mean, shouldn't that be the standard to going out with someone? Let's see. I think so much of this has to do with past actions. Um, let's see. To my point of before about exactly, you can't keep using trauma as an excuse for poor behavior and poor decisions. Yeah, and some people have said that their dads are past. So again, I the dad question. The dad question, I think that we got to start making better decisions. As when I had Dr. Diane Stewart on the show, she said something that was really kind of profound. You know, we have to, we got more education today than our ancestors did, particularly as Black people, but we're not reading the material, right? We're not reading the psychological material, the self-help books, and it's certainly not penetrating to we're still making bad decisions. And so at what point can we or should we start making better decisions?
I know that's a question. You want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I think it's gonna come to a point that a lot of people gotta do the work at the end of the day. Why you come into any situation where a person might not have the same trauma you have, you bring to their table to deal with, because a lot of us are not psychologists. We're not a person you can sit down and then air out your problems and we give you solutions, personally, unless we're professionals and all that stuff. But overall, if you're going through some real serious trauma that you're not really taking the time to put in the work to resolve it, it's going to constantly follow you. And it's going to be a point in life that for you to move forward in your life, mentally, spiritually, you have to, how you say it? You have to conflict and confront your greatest traumas and your fears, because that holds you back. You always hear the saying, when you don't confront the fear, it always going to follow you to a point where it's going to stagnate you. It's going to suppress your greatest potential, what you really are as a person. Like, for example, here's a bad example. People are afraid of animals, or let's say insects, like a phobia, right? So imagine you're in a household where you're afraid of, to say, a spider, and all of a sudden you see a cobweb somewhere a bit. You're gonna run out your room because you think the fear that there's a spider present that is gonna come and attack you. So now you cannot be in the place that you fix up, that's your place of rest and nest, be affecting how you're able to operate, sleep, and rest in your place that you establish nest, because there's something in there. Instead of overcoming and either get rid of the fear or confront it, you're always going to have that problem. So like I said, with trauma, you have to deal with the trauma. You have to find ways to confront it and deal with it head on, because you don't do this. You hear most people talk about, say, if there's certain consequences when we don't meet our so-called traumas, or what they call generation curse. It keeps spreading. It carries on from this person to possibly the children or whatever. So how you eliminate that? You have to confront what this is, this trauma that you're facing, so it does not pass down spiritually. And I know most people don't deal with the spiritual aspect, but we know as Black people, spiritual people, there are consequences when we don't deal with certain things. It's not just the physical plane where you got to worry about the spiritual plane, where it might pass down on you. So I hope that didn't go over a lot of your heads. So yeah.
No, I definitely agree. You got to confront the traumas, but that's a mature conversation, and certainly that's something we definitely got to get to as far as confronting that. So a lot of people were talking about, trust has to be built. Trust has to be built, but experiences had to be had in order for trust to be built. I think you should not be in a relationship if you don't have trust with that person. It's up to you to red pill sleeper cell. And Sassy Recruity says, I would not date or be intimate with someone I can't trust. I think there are many women that have not seen men in their life model. I think there are many women that have not seen men in their life model trustworthy behavior. I think that is huge, and it's an indictment on men, and we'll never know the exact numbers, but if your cousins and your uncles and your father wasn't around, um, that can have devastating effects on you. Certainly, certainly, certainly. We got to do something about that. As far as that, thank you so much for chiming in, Miles. So I'd like to know some from some of the ladies, right? Um, if you could define, weak. We talked about being untrustworthy. I said what I thought, what I've heard other ladies say about being weak. When a man is too weak, what would you all say as a man who has not displayed these types of behaviors, been weak? What would you say is a weak man, and that totally turns you off? Confronting trauma is the goal, but it depends on the severity for which one can take the time to face and heal. I think if you want it, you want it. I think if you want some people enjoy the trauma. They enjoy ratchet behavior. They enjoy balloon pop shows, and they enjoy those other what are the shows? The Real Housewives show. They enjoy that type of trauma, and to me, that's all trauma. You enjoy the messiness. You enjoy it. Um, that's my assessment of it. Is if you never want to get out of the problems, you always want to be talking about how someone hurt you, someone did you wrong, and you want to take that out on someone else. You wouldn't take it out on your spouse. You want to take it out on your boyfriend, take it out on your children. To a certain level, you enjoy it. Particularly if we have the methods, to get through this type of stuff. Everybody's heard about therapy. Everybody's heard about self-help books. If you don't want to get out of it, so to my question about weak men, a man who can't provide for himself or his children. Thank you so much for that, Gail. In chaos, to your definition, what would you define as a weak man?
I think a man, in my opinion, is weak is when he does not hold himself accountable and take some form of charge and assertive to things in his life, Right, if he's lacking of, making less money, he could do some things to do better and prove that, or things like, be sociable, or being things of, to be more, how can I say, more responsible. That's my definition of, a weak man.
To be more responsible. Thank you.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Rhonda's saying a weak man who lacks confidence, lacks character, indecisive. What do you mean by character? Yes, a lot of people are addicted to trauma. The prospect of peaceful life is boring.
It's funny, a lady wrote character. A lot of ladies nowadays, when they deal with certain men, they don't really focus on the character 9/10 of the time. I'm just saying.
Neediness and codependency. I'm hearing a lot of men who can't stand up on their own 2 feet is a real big problem. Trauma and drama addicts trauma and drama addicts are everywhere. Yeah, definitely true. And an adult should be able to take care of himself, herself, his morals. Yeah. These are all issues. These are all issues that men are definitely facing, and that's why I'm so proud and so glad that Anthony Mackie stood up and talked about this. Right. So for him to get any type of pushback and try to make it seem like he was talking about some days gone by of knuckle dragging, and me Jane, or you Jane, me Tarzan, I'm going to bonk you in the side of the head with my club and then kidnap you into a cave. I think that really missed the point of what he was trying to say. He was trying to give his sons a sense of a moral character and the ability to stand on his own 2 feet and defeat neediness, and give him that character and make him decisive. And for that to be pushed back against, it's kind of worrying and troubling to me, quite honestly, that anybody would have a problem with that. or particularly when they say for the 15-year-old, man. but then again, like I said, you want the 30-year-old guy who was once a 15-year-old to be something that he was never trained to be, and that's just not how the world works. People extend their own trauma by prioritizing dating and relationships over healing. That's good. Then use it as an excuse for bad behavior. So instead of taking the time to heal from their past pains and traumas, they're going out on dates and traumatizing other people. hurt people, right? A man who can't make decisions, gets angry easily, can't control himself, lies, doesn't keep his word, is undependable, not trustworthy, won't take the lead, seems confused. And I appreciate all the ladies. Thank you for that, Chrissy and Gail, and to everyone else who chimed in about that. Have you guys run into, and just say yes or no, have you run into a lot of men like this in the dating scene, or maybe your cousins or whatever in your own family? Have you all run into this a lot? From these definitions, they're chaos. Have you seen a lot of this? Do you agree with these ladies' assessments?
These are the ladies' opinions on their views of what a man is. I'm not gonna argue much. If that's what their opinions are, what their views are, then that is what it is. It's nice to see that when they throw this question out there, I always want the ladies to define it as clear as possible, like a baby could understand. Because a lot of men, we do go back to these videos, sometimes chat room, and when a question is asked, and someone asks define it, that's when we sit there and we use our logic to say, okay, that makes sense. That question,
I got you. In my opinion, a man reinforces trust through actions and keeping the word, huge protectors and model responsibilities and strength to younger men and the family. So, and women are told to stand by a man. This is from Gail. And women are told to stand by a man and build him up and support him. Kanye said it best, and when he gets on, he leave you for a white girl. I'd like to know, I mean, is this
man? I don't know about that.
Well, that's what I want to probe into a little bit here. Do the ladies think that this is a vast, I mean, how big of a problem is this, in particular, to the standing by? So we've heard a lot of ladies say, and this is a big point in the manosphere, is that ladies don't want to build up a man. They don't want to stand up a man. They want to meet the man at the finish line. They want to meet a man who's already got his 6-figure job and already established, and therefore they want to meet him then, instead of helping him to work along the way in order to get where he wants to be. Is this a big issue with the ladies out there who are saying to themselves, I don't want to build a man because he might leave me? What do you all say? To the previous question I asked, Yoli's saying no. She's not meeting a lot of men like that. Rhonda has met a lot of men like that. Yes, and it doesn't get any better the older they are either. That's sad. Got a lot of work to do, man. Stand by your man, support him, but don't sacrifice yourself in your dreams. Okay. All right. Interesting conversation we got going on here. I'm definitely interested in about the building up thing, because a lot of men are probably going to need work. They're probably going to need work, in particular if they don't have this emotional intelligence and these moral skills and the indecisiveness and all that. And that's why I talked about growing up, the experiences that I had growing up at the boys club, etc. You had to become decisive, right? You had to become right. You had to have some decision making skills. And I think when guys are sitting in the house all day playing video games, they're lacking these types of skills. And so they're not cut out for this new world that we're living in, which is unfortunate. So for me, there's a sense of satisfaction when two persons work together to achieve common goals. Are you afraid, though? I appreciate that, Yoli. Are you afraid, though, that if you work together with a man, that he might leave you once he establishes that goal? I will support a man that is walking and working in his purpose. Sadly, many men don't. Many men have not identified their purpose. You were bullied at the boys' club. Yeah, well, but that made you that builds character, though, right? That builds character. Listen, I was too, man. We had to fight. People want to take your money and stuff. We probably went to the same boys club, right? Listen, it was an issue. I'm playing my PS5 right now. Listen, I don't have any problem with playing video games. I'm 52 years old. Well, I'll be 52 soon, so I still play my video games. I ain't got no problem with that.
Yeah, so you got the PlayStation 5 control in the background. You know.
Oh yeah, it's charging up, brother. It's charging up.
Is it new system or the old? Is the old console? It's the new one or the old one?
I don't know. I think I got the new one. I think
The PS5, because I just got a PlayStation after a whole decade. I stopped supporting PlayStation a long time ago. So
yeah. Red Pill, man. I want to have you on one day, brother, if you're up for it, man. So it also goes back to trust. If I support you and build you up, can I trust you that once you find success, we continue to build together? Yeah, man. I mean, I hear that from ladies, man. I don't think that's an irrational way to think. You want to make sure that you're in this thing for the long haul. To me, that is the best and most logical way to approach relationships. Because let's be honest, most people, men and women, aren't pulling in money like that. Yeah. All right. So that's the presentation for tonight, man. I really thank you guys for being so active in the chat. Appreciate you, Chaos, for coming up. Is there any final words? We're gonna close it out. We're just gonna close it out because I'm hungry.
Let me see. What time I can't remember. No, I don't think so. I had to catch replay of this because you dropped a lot of information, and as you know, I always come by and listen a little bit before I jump on here. But like I said, I had to jump in because of the opportunity of the title at hand. I had to say something, because I don't really cover too much of this on my channel because it has to be something intriguing to me to cover, really to set presence of what's out here in the social media landscape of things. But
how old are you?
Oh man, I don't really go. I'd say I'm a millennial, so that's the smart.
All right, so I'm old. You're a millennial,
but you're older than me. You're older than me by a whole decade.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So do you see, or are you able to identify with the things that come out of my mouth and probably out of Red Pills and even Miles when they speak, or the guys in our late 40s, 50s, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to see the difference in the men that you grew up with, and those, I don't even know what they're called, Gen Zs now, the 20-year-olds? Are you able to see a difference in their walks of life, and what do you think about that?
Well, I think because I'm around certain men that are a little bit older than me, that being around people that's not much my age and some that I find that's like a decade or years younger, I see the comparison difference. I think the difference is how we are, I don't like to use the word groom, how we're grooming today's present society. Because when you were like a boy, there's certain things you have to do to adapt to the environment, and you carry that forward as your adult. But like the people that is born like Gen Z from 95 up to now, they are more prone to the technical aspects of society. So they're more into their phones. They don't communicate like I could still communicate with somebody front to front. I'm not a text person. I like to have conversations. Unlike someone that's younger than me, they like to take the alternate approach. You get me? So I see the differences, And that's the only difference I notice.
So you see the difference. You think it's positive, negative? I mean, do you work with anyone younger than you who's always on his phone and can't function?
I'm around some of them, and at times the only thing I can do as a person is I try to give them sound advice, some that they will remember as they're progressing in their own stage of development in life as manhood. The only thing I have an issue if I had to go there with Gen Z is I rather they be more assertive in life. You get me? Like how you see us now, a lot of them are tapping out, not even trying. They should do things different than what I did not take opportunity to do. You get me? And as young as they are, I say you have more of a great opportunity now because now the world is your oyster because you're in the stage now where you don't have to really work hard for your money. You don't have to work hard to interact with people. If you know how to use it properly, you could be really good at a point in your development, young man. You get me? If we take the opportunities now, you get me? I had to learn some of the stuff. You get me? And I'm still
I think that's that's always going to be an issue, that the younger generations are not going to listen to you. But
yeah, no, I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that.
I kind of want to focus in on, are they, if you're working with these dudes, they can't function, they can't have a conversation, they can't interact with the boss, they quit, they quit easily,
Oh
they
yeah.
get triggered. That's kind of what
I haven't come across some of them yet. But I've heard stories. I'll say this: if I did, I'm not the person like to really shame or put pity on them. I'm more of a big brother to try to instill, because let's be honest, Dr. L. When some people's a generation when they're not been raised by an old cohesive family unit, what happens with every generation? You see most of our young people start to water down. You get me? And they go, and here's one thing. I have a short right now. If you follow my channel, I had a conversation with another good brother that's my generation, and I talk about the struggles of what to deal with younger people and how to understand or how to adapt with them now. And he told me, I'm gonna give a snippet. He said these young people now, they are gonna demand more from people that's from the past generation, because they want people to be emotionally intelligent, all this stuff. And you hear them talk about this, and I didn't really conceptualize, but when I think about it, yes, some of them are at that point now that they're not gonna be like the typical man today. They're gonna be more broader. So
listen, I got to bring that up in every class that I teach. I teach leadership class, I teach criminal justice classes. I got to talk about emotional intelligence. You don't want a non-emotionally intelligent police officer coming to your door. And when I teach leadership classes, I'm like, listen, we got to talk about emotional intelligence, right? So that's what I'm saying. That these issues and problems that we're talking about, they're not being able to, as somebody said, make small talk and all this other kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
They can't do all that because of the phones, because of the environment, sitting on their PlayStations and all day. And as Black Dev says, which is hilarious to me, they quit a job because they was tripping. I don't even know what that means. So I think that's hilarious. They quit a job because the boss was tripping. Well, okay, what does that mean? What do you mean he was tripping? He wanted you to be here on time? Right? He didn't want you texting while you're supposed to be doing your job. I mean, what are we talking about here? So I don't know. But anyway, so thank you so much for coming on.
All right, we'll do this again soon, Dr. L. One thing I would recommend, another doctor, Dr. Dunbar. He had a man called Aaron Clary, and he talking about a world about men. I don't know if you're able to get in contact. Maybe you should have that brother on. I mean, that man on your podcast, because he says some things that I never own his book, but it's something to look into.
I know of Aaron Clary. I was gonna get his book. I just don't have time to read it though. It's
I had to make time to read a lot of these books. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. A lot of times now, if people don't have audiobooks, I'm just so busy. Like when I'm correcting papers and stuff, I just audiobook it in the background or whatever. But if the guys don't have audiobooks, I just can't get to their stuff, So, but that one.
I see.
All right, so I'm gonna take you down, brother. I appreciate you
All
coming
right,
on.
take care. We'll talk again soon. Take care.
All right. Thank you so much for coming up there, Chaos. Let's see. Or they won't let me use my phone. Yeah, that's exactly right. For real. Emotional intelligence today means reading a chat message correctly. Yeah, it's crazy. All right, y'all. I appreciate you guys coming up. Please hit the like button. You guys can always buy me some lunch too. Hit the like button. And if you want, buy me some lunch. I would really appreciate it. I'm going to try to do a couple more shows this week. There's a few videos I came across that I saw that I really wanted to respond to and all that. So I'm going to try to do maybe one or two more shows this week. Maybe today's Tuesday, maybe Wednesday or Thursday, and maybe another one Friday or Saturday or so, or something like that. So we'll see. Maybe I'll try to do one during the day. See, I got a lot going on, but I definitely want to get these shows in. So I appreciate you guys all coming up. Appreciate you, Chaos, and to the comment section. Appreciate the moderators. I really, really appreciate you guys. And great conversation. Thank you so much for being interactive and answering the questions. And listen, we got to try to make these men. But again, at the end of the day, this emotional intelligence, this making strong men, and it's all going to be. It's a reward system. I'm very much a behaviorist when it comes to psychology. So that I believe that people follow rewards. People follow rewards. So You know, you want men to, and this is an issue, right? Because the jobs are gone, people can't, you know, I think now the average house is something like $400,000. You know, 50 years ago, the average house was bought, average first home age of somebody buying a house was something like 24. Now it's like 47 to 48. I'm hearing 52, all these different numbers. So, you know, and guys are like, why should I leave my mother's basement? I'm just going to sit here and play video games and just, you know, watch my funny movies all day. So that's what we're doing. All right, y'all. I'll see you guys. Take care. Much love and peace.